All right, ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. We invite you to take your seats.
再一次歡迎咁多位來賓，請各位來賓可以入席就座啦。
Thank you very much. All right, we are going to be starting our first plenary session today, but before we do that, I want to introduce the person to my left. Is Ms. Kelly Lin. She is the youth representative from CLAP JC, and you might recognize her as also one of the spectacular performers that opened our show for us. Welcome, Kelly, and thank you for being my partner today.
Thank you, Desmond. 非常之榮幸啦，除咗可以擔任呢一個開幕表演嘅參與之一，亦都能夠喺台上面咧同大家咧係做司儀㗎。我知接住落嚟咧，我哋會繼續有下一個環節嘅主題分享喎。
That's right. We're thrilled to present our first plenary session. It's the evolution of the future of work and talents in the changing world. A respectable panel of speakers will discuss how our workplace sees talent, reimagines work, and broadens the definition of success in a fast-changing world.
接住落嚟，我哋環節嘅主題係未來世界的工作與人才。
Let us first welcome Dr. Jeremy Fox, CEO, Asia Pacific Generation, to the stage for the presentation of a very recent white paper about the future of work and talent by generation in partnership with CLAP at JC.
Thank you. No, it's just me starting. Okay, great. Thanks for having me here. I am Jeremy, so I am the CEO for Generation in Asia Pacific, which you'll see from up there. I will tell you more about what that means in a minute because I don't have a whole lot of time to get through this. We want to get to the panel discussion. I was asked to write a white paper as input for this for the conference, which we did. Hopefully some of you have seen it and read it already. If you have, this is going to be a very, very quick recap of what you've seen. If you haven't, which I think is probably most of you, it's going to be a bit of a teaser for what I hope you will read later when you leave or later today. But it is going to be what I'm talking about briefly during the session, and then we're going to be reflecting on it in the panel discussion. Louder. Yay, okay, we'll go louder. I usually just scream at the back of the room, but we'll use this. Okay. So we started this with the idea that we would reflect on the future of work. But sort of very quickly we realized that talking about the future of work in detail isn't really relevant. And it's actually quite, it's going to be quite reflective of Dr. Andres' talk as well, that is really more about the speed of change. It's not necessarily about the details that are coming out of the future of work reports. Now, it's a huge topic, obviously. It's been a huge topic for about 10 years. We scanned a bunch of the reports. There's some really nice insights out of there. I'm not going to be able to go through every insight for everything, but incorporation of new technologies, emergence of new roles, of course, new ways of working. Really importantly, which we'll get into a lot today, though, is about the increasing importance of softer skills, which we saw from the earlier talk as well, and the widening skills gap that we're seeing. The biggest thing, the biggest insight, again, which is going to continue to be reflective, I think, in these talks, is it's really about change. It's about change and the accelerating pace of change. So it's not so much about what job is coming next. There's a tremendous amount of turnover in the actual jobs and disciplines. It's about how fast things are changing and how much faster things are changing. And I'm very excited to hear from the panel as well about their perspectives on this because they're deep in this work as well. Very quickly, skill gaps are growing. So 75% of employers believe their countries are facing substantial skill gaps. 25% of occupational transitions are going to be happening by 2030. 23% of labor market is going to churn in the next 5 years. So it's all reinforcing the same ideas that the world is moving very, very fast, and we need to stay adaptive to be able to keep up with it. So and one thing which is actually really interesting from the report as well, which we will reflect later, is if you actually ask employers, this is from the World Economic Forum report for 2023, if you ask employers what the top 10 skills that are needed in their employees, 9 of the top 10 are not technical skills. So 9 of the top 10 are soft skills. And a lot of these were also reflected in your talk as well. So it is, again, not the technical changes that we're looking at. It is the pace of change, and it's the adaptability that people have and companies have and organizations have to make sure that you can keep up with that pace of change. Let me tell you a little bit about what we are, because what we've done in this report is essentially come up with recommendations for different stakeholders in the ecosystem based on the work that we do. So I think it's important for you to understand what we do, kind of the depth of what we do, and then we'll talk about the specific recommendations that we have. This is going to be a very big skim, and again, there's a lot more detail that's actually in the white paper, so I encourage you to read the white paper when we're finished. And I'm going to cheat entirely. It's a lot faster. We have a couple of really nice videos that describe our methodology, so instead of me continuing to talk, you're going to see some pretty visuals. I hope.
We're Generation, and we're working to solve the employment puzzle. As the job market fluctuates, millions of people face unemployment while companies report skill shortages. We help people get trained and hired for jobs that were out of reach before because of biases about their education or financial background, gender, or prior work experience. Most of our programs are free to learners, so we can reach people who need it most. The employment puzzle has many pieces, from whether companies are hiring, to whether the candidate has the skills, to whether they have transportation to access the job. Many organizations tackle individual pieces, but at Generation, we offer a holistic solution. We train and place people in high-demand jobs and change the way companies hire. We serve people of all ages, from young adults at the start of their careers to mid-career workers who are starting over or who need to learn new skills. Our programs are fast, lasting 4 to 12 weeks, not months or years. We offer them in person and online, and they're based on repeated practice of real situations you will face on the job. When our employer partners meet our graduates, they meet a group of motivated and skilled candidates that are prepared to be high performers on the job from day one. Our approach includes the same 7 steps in each of the countries we operate. That helps us to stay true to our core vision: meaningful jobs and long-term well-being for every person anywhere in the world. Because we need an education to employment system that works for everyone. That's what motivates Generation to keep moving forward. We go further together. Will you join us? Generation, you employed.
I'll get into a little bit more detail of the specific model, but it's going to be very quick later as well, because a lot of the insights that we're deriving today in the recommendations come from essentially this kind of microcosm of what we do, which is taking needful people, training them and placing them into jobs, and drawing insights from that to make recommendations for players in the overall ecosystem. Now, to give you a little bit of a sense of who we serve as well, I'm going to show another video. Again, I swear this is faster than me talking.
Eu passei a minha vida inteira ouvindo que as coisas não foram feitas para mim, assim.
All of us were raised in the slums. I have carried a heavy burden on my back.
I was searching for work. There were like 4 lives depending on my job.
मेरे हस्बैंड एक्सपायर हुए थे तो मेरे पास कोई सेफ मनी भी नहीं थी.
Tenía hasta 3 trabajos, ni siquiera para una vida digna alcanzaba.
I've probably sent close to 100 resumes.
Everyone asked for experience or internships that I did not have.
E recebia não também.
Until Generation came along and said to me, actually, there is more to what you can do.
I do look back at the Generation program as a transformative point in my life.
The support from Generation was always there throughout the way.
Straight after I graduated, I got into a role within a week.
Que vai mudar a vida.
Avevo mai visto una busta paga così piena finora.
Within the next 2 years, myself and my husband are looking to buy a house.
I can afford water, electricity.
Mejorar la alimentación.
Poder ayudar a mi papá con su salud.
I wanted to have everything, you know, education, housing.
Lo que ganamos ahora es un sueldo digno que nos permite soñar.
I know this is super cliche because everyone says it, but I also want to acknowledge that for me, Generation changed my life.
Generation really has changed my life.
Cambio, Generation has my heart.
This is literally amazing. Anyone
the best
can do
thing
it.
that happens to me.
It's like a dream, honestly.
to show you what we do. That still gets me every time I watch it. I won't go into detail. Basically, our learner population, it started with youth, actually. Our original logo was youth unemployed, changing to you employed. But that's expanded out to all ages, and it's essentially anyone who is needful of a job, a career that they can't get without some kind of a very high-touch intervention like we have. The methodology, we'll get into this in the next 6 minutes. It starts with the employers, so it starts with the market. We go to the marketplace, we identify jobs that we think are aspirational for people, entry-level jobs. We work with those employers, we map the job. I'll talk a little bit about how we do that going forward. And we identify sets of beneficiaries that we think are aspirational for those jobs. We built short boot camps, we train them in those boot camps, they get mentorship, they get wraparound support. We work with them to teach them how to do interviews, we match them with employers, we make sure they get employed, and we support them for 6 to 12 months on the job. All of these elements are basically integrating multiple pieces of that journey from aspiration to employment, and from that, we would like to make some recommendations from some of the stakeholders across these different areas. You can see this in the document, but essentially we're very, very proud of ourselves that we have achieved a measure of breadth. We have 100,000 graduates. Depth, so our placement rates are upwards of 90%, right? I mean, these are incredibly high fidelity placement rates. And 65% of our employers have come back to hire from us again. So it shows that the performance of our graduates is extremely high, despite the fact that none of these people have the technical background that they needed for the job before they started the training program. So this becomes very relevant when we're talking about different pathways to employment and transferable skills. So we want to make some recommendations, and there's a lot more depth in the paper, so I'm going to have to go very quickly here. So we want to make some recommendations across different stakeholders based on what we've learned. For learners, for job aspirants, the biggest thing is motivation. So the biggest selection criteria for us is, are you highly motivated to get into a full-time job? It is not your technical background. It's basically nothing else. Our entry requirements are extremely low, even for high-tech programs. So we run programs like software developer, data analytics in 3 months. You have to have no technical background for that. What matters is motivation and a learning mindset. And this is what's incredibly important for employers. Employers come back to us again and again and they say, I don't care if they have the full tech stack. I like these people because they know they're on a learning journey. So they've started their learning journey when they come in the company, they've been able to articulate that they're on a learning journey, and they demonstrate that. When they get into the company, they immediately continue to learn. And that's what employers are looking for. And you see it in the soft skills that were reported in the World Economic Forum report. We reinforce that in the classroom. We make sure that the learning experience is built around those behaviors, skills, and mindsets, and we get them prepared to communicate that to employers. And so as a learner, demonstrating that to employers is also going to be incredibly important, even if you're doing it on your own. Transferable skills are incredibly important. There are tools to do this. Within CLAP, there's something called CV360, which you can read about in the paper as well. But just because you don't have the exact technical skills doesn't mean you're not going to be good for the job. It's about identifying your transferable skills that can be applicable to the role and that you can communicate to employers. And we provide a lot of wraparound support. So it might be traditional mentorship, technical coaching, social support. As an individual, these things are also available to you, and so we would encourage individuals to go find these support systems for themselves as they're embarking on the journey. So it's going to be quick. Employers. So a lot of the employer side is around moving toward more of a skills-based approach to hiring as opposed to traditional education and work background, which is what we typically index on, especially in some of our Asian countries. We actually wrote a report with OECD actually earlier in the year, and the short version of that is companies that expanded their hiring pool to move towards skills-based hiring saw an expansion in their hiring pool, so it alleviated their hiring pressure, and the performance of those individuals was as good or better than most of their traditional hires, on par with companies that actually tightened their hiring requirements. So opening up to a skills-based hiring approach actually improves overall performance. This is not that easy to do. You can't just open the doors. You have to have new ways to assess skills. You need some competency-based assessments, and there are tools out there that companies can avail themselves on, and we work with companies as well to try to help them move to more of a skills-based approach. But it does take work to do this, and you have to train the HR organizations to think in a different way. And someday this will be supported by AI. We're working on this ourselves a little bit, but at some point this will be supported by AI because you're getting into things that are harder to see. The intrinsics that are harder to see or harder to articulate on paper. And soft landings are incredibly important for people who are coming from non-traditional backgrounds. And this is something that companies can do. We encourage internships a lot of the times. Our graduates are nervous about getting into the jobs. Employers are apprehensive about taking people with non-traditional backgrounds. But we can engineer pathways, either internships, wraparound coaching programs, and make sure that you're building top-up pathways for people as well, because they are on a learning journey. So when they come into the company, you're going to need to upskill them on a new stack or some proprietary technology that you're using. These can be built in. And this obviously goes to, I think Bill will probably talk about this a little bit too, this goes to incumbents as well. Learning is an ongoing journey. When you're in the company, you need to be continuously learning as well. So the company can not only encourage this, but build these top-up programs within the organization. For academic institutions, we do a lot of work with academic institutions. We've actually done a lot of capability building with polytechnics. We've done it with all the polytechnics in Singapore. In Thailand right now, we're working with a dozen universities to teach them to do more demand-driven, industry-driven curriculum build into programs, into either their traditional educational programs or into non-degree programs. So the biggest thing is job readiness is job one. So we need to make sure that you're building training programs that are mimicking the work environment as much as possible. So when someone goes to the interview and goes to the job, they have actually practiced the job. They haven't just learned the technical skills. Especially, again, if you're doing a job transition, you need to be able to go and talk about your portfolio or your experience or project work. Even if you only had 3 months in the classroom, you still need to have done some project work. So we build all of our classes around that experience so that they can communicate that to potential employers. We work with employers, as I said, to figure out exactly what it takes to be successful. So we spend time, we do what's called activity mapping. We literally go into the employers, we shadow people who are doing the job, we try to figure out those who do the job well, why is it they do the job well, what are the breakpoints that make them do the job well, and for those that struggle, what are the reasons that they struggle? And those are not technical. Those are always going to be soft skills, they're going to be relational, they're going to be communication. These are the things that make people really do the job exceptionally well, despite the technical stack. This is good. Okay, we talked a lot about the benchmark, so I put this in here, but I'm not going to go into detail because it'll take too long. But this is a really, really good example in Hong Kong about building those connections to employment back into secondary schools. It's actually unique in our experience, and it's something that we would love to start replicating in other markets. So I won't go into detail, but it's something that's, it's great that we're working this far backwards, because we typically work after secondary school. It's great that that's working this far backwards into secondary schools. And really important is refresh, refresh, refresh. So you don't build curriculum once every 3 years or 4 years. When we build curriculum, we review it essentially every cohort. So we have a continuous improvement mindset where we're constantly changing small parts of the curriculum based on feedback from students, employers, the instructors, and at least once a year we'll do a structural rebuild of the curriculum based on a new set of activity mapping. It's a constant process to stay relevant with the market and with employers. And then wraparound support is incredibly important to us. As I mentioned, this is something I think academic institutions and other training providers can also provide. So it's mentorship, it's coaching, it's peer networks. These things are incredibly important in the training environment. They're more important on the job. The first month on the job, weeks on the job, are when you're most likely to flame out, basically. So making sure that those support systems exist, both from the employer side, potentially even as wraparound from the education side, is incredibly important. All right, we're getting close. Governments. Governments can play a huge role, not just as a funder, but as an integrator. So as we said, there are a number of players along the journey for someone to get to the idea that they want new employment into getting into the job. So all these steps, which I'm not going to talk through all of them, are typically owned in the ecosystem by different players. Trying as an individual to identify those and jump between them is incredibly difficult. And we lose a tremendous amount of fidelity as you go through that system. We integrate all these pieces in our methodology, but governments can also play a role to make sure that they are stitching together the different players, either with different funding mechanisms, ensuring that funding and incentives are all aligned across the different players, but also creating frameworks, networks that allow people to navigate this journey a lot easier. We have a cool example of this from India that I will not go into, but it's in the paper, so please read the paper. And this is sort of start early and start late. So again, the work in Hong Kong is amazing. It is starting early in schools. It's getting them exposure to career and life development. Or obviously governments can encourage this. They should be, a lot of them are. But also start late, right? I mean, especially COVID has shown us there's a tremendous amount of people who are going to be losing their jobs mid-career and need to be reskilled. So in the spirit of, as an individual, to be continuously learning, governments also can be building the same types of training and upskilling and re-employment programs for mid-careers. We're almost done. This is not that bad. Back up. For funders, so obviously we have a number of different funders. The biggest thing on the funder side is to insist on outcomes, right? So insist on outcomes. The funding should be based on outcomes. There's a tremendous amount of new social impact bonds, blended finance models out there, where as a funder, you can make sure that your dollars are spent well. At Generation, we have a tremendous amount of data. It's the core of our methodology. So we have real-time data in the classroom, every student, every instructor, every mentor that we can pull on demand from Power BI. We also have alumni data. We track our alumni forever, essentially. So we have 5 to 6 years now of alumni data. We know someone who graduated 5 years ago, where they are, where they're working, how much they're making, how satisfied they are, how much they can save. That kind of data tells us that we're doing this well. It also tells governments and funders that they're doing it well. And you can build funding mechanisms around this now. So the last one is, as a funder as well, it does take a village to some extent. So go to market together, pool your resources, find ways to do, build blended financing products. There's a little bit more about this in the paper. And I would also strongly recommend to collaborate with those that you're supporting. So take almost a PE mindset to it, right? You've invested in this organization. Most NGOs don't have a lot of leadership expertise sometimes. They don't have finance. They don't have HR. There's a lot of stuff that they're doing that is absolutely kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel to some extent. So providing advisory, providing consulting services, helping them build networks is going to be incredibly important for them to be more effective. So instead of just having a pure funder role, step in and co-collaborate with them and co-create. And that is it. I'm 5 minutes over. That's not that bad.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Fox. Please remain with us. Now, after the presentation of that white paper, we are ready to invite our heavyweight representatives from the business sector to join Dr. Fox to further discuss what the future of work will look like and how talent should be defined. Please welcome Ms. Diana CESAR, Executive Director and Chief Executive, Seng Bank.
恒生銀行執行董事兼行政總裁施永欣女士。
Mr. Bill Lee, Managing Director, Hong Kong Jobsdb by Seek.
香港區營運總監李正芬先生。
And Ms. Hayley Leung, Vice Chairman, Manpower Committee, Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce.
香港總商會人力委員會副主席梁小玲女士。有請咁多位嘉賓。
Now a reminder that we will have a Q&A that you can ask questions to both the panelists and of course our moderator. There will be a mic set up here on your left side later on.
稍後時間我哋會有 Q&A section 嘅，有興趣發問嘅觀眾咧可以嚟到我哋台前嘅位置㗎。
Dr. Fox, let us turn the time over to you. Thank you.
Thanks so much. We're just going to start very simply, just quick self-introductions to give the audience a sense of kind of your involvement, relevance.
So maybe I'll start. Diana CESAR. I work in a bank, financial sector for 20-odd years now. Seng Bank, a local bank here, and previously HSBC. I think in our sector, we can definitely see the workforce evolving and the talents and the colleagues we work with, the skill sets evolving, and more importantly is the mindset. I think picking up on what Andreas and Jeremy you mentioned just now, so I'd be pleased to share that in a later session.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Hayley Leung. Yeah, I have been in the board as the advisor at the second phase and has been 5 years. And my day job is I work for Jardine Matheson, which we are the largest private employer in Hong Kong. So I actually very excited to hear what I got from Jeremy, from Andrea this morning. So and really look forward to see what the group can do to support the situation.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Bill Lee. I'm the Managing Director for Jobsdb by Seek. We essentially, across APAC, we probably have the largest, online employment platform from Australia all the way to Bangladesh, from Indonesia all the way to Korea. We have a lot of data. We're happy to share, especially from the Hong Kong context and learning, from the other experts around the region. What can we do better? I think that's the point. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So the first question is going to be very simple, which is, what from the white paper resonated the most that you would want to amplify or add to? And Bill, we're going to start with you because I think you actually have a few numbers at hand.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeremy. So it was great just now, I think, listening to Dr. Andreas and also Jeremy's session just now, because I think Dr. Andreas gave the overview, across all the markets, where are we, in regards to averages. It's great to see, basically from Jeremy's perspective, what we are doing, I think, on the ground, right? So the question is really, from a Hong Kong's perspective, what are we seeing, in the market? Firstly, I think if you look at the slides here, is that in Hong Kong, when we look at our data, all right, there has been a great increase in the number of job applications in the market. Now that comes from a combination of a couple of things. Number one, we are definitely seeing, a bit more net inflow of people coming into Hong Kong post reopening of the borders. As you can see, the talent engage program for the Hong Kong government is working pretty well. I think there's more than 100,000 people in already. So first time in the past 5 years, we are seeing a net population and working population growth. The second thing is, I think people are also, more active in the job market, right? Thank you. They're more active in the job market, they're willing, their confidence level, into changing a job is also there. Now the question is, however, when we're seeing from the employer side, right, large organizations or smaller organizations, we are still seeing hirers and employers reporting that it's difficult to find talent, right? But the question is, as we track this data over many, many years, we are seeing the responses are coming more and more nuanced. Where previously we were talking about perhaps shortages in the absolute number of people, now we are seeing reporters saying things like, hey, it's difficult because, the right experience, expectations on salary and benefits, and the most critical one, there's a bit of a skills mismatch. So what we are seeing right now, increasingly moving forward, is that, hey, there's more people coming back to work. There is, expectations from the hirer side, but it's a bit of a skills mismatch in the middle. The next thing that we're seeing is also from the job seeker side and also from graduates coming into the industry, is that both sides recognize, it's very, to Jeremy's point earlier, like the roles that we are hiring now is not necessarily the roles that will exist in 5 years' time, or new roles, that's going to be created that, that we don't know at this point just yet, right? Both sides of the equation, from the hirer side as well as the graduates and the job seekers, they realize that they need to change, that all these activities that we are spreading out to the market that, hey, change is coming, they recognize it. The question is, are we getting enough channels and availability of resources, availability of, activities to basically help, in that process, which is, I suppose, why we are here today. Yeah. Back to you.
Thanks, Bill.
Sure. Maybe from a financial sector, that's where I come from. Also a bit of a perspective. The financial sector contributes to 23.4% of Hong Kong's GDP. Yet, from a workforce perspective, we only take up about 7.2% of workforce, so 276,000 colleagues in the industry. So I suppose if you think from that perspective, clearly there is a shortage of talents and colleagues in our industry. But I think more importantly, it's also the nature of work has also evolved. So whilst there used to be a lot of myths, if you work for a bank or you work in the financial sector, you have to have technical knowledge as in accounting, economics, and whatnot. But these days, actually, employers in the financial sector, we look for talents, we look for workers who actually have a mindset and aptitude where you actually have a servicing and a resilient mindset, an agility, a degree of agility, in a sense that you need to evolve. The sector evolves very quickly. Customer behaviors evolve very quickly. Technology evolves very, very quickly. And I often think technology enables you to do anything under the sun. You don't actually have to be an engineer or a computer science geek to have to know that. But how do you apply it? that's where we see the creativity coming in. And that's actually very important as an ingredient, if you would, as a quality that we look for. And an aptitude and a mindset for growth. You want to be better. And how do you premise your decisions and your actions revolving around the customer? Because at the end of the day, we are a business of trust. So in that sense, I think the human quality, the emotional well-being of our colleagues, as well as the technical know-how, that I'm not so worried, because we can always train our colleagues, as Jeremy says. We can always provide on-the-job training. We can always equip them with skills, as well as education, if they would. So I think it's more the chemistry and the mindset that matters. Yeah.
And I'll ask the same of Haley, but I'm also really curious, have you been able to build those softer elements into the hiring process formally?
Yeah, I think that's a very good one, Jeremy, because in our assessment, when we assess and we recruit, we actually place equal, if not more, of the balance on emotional and aptitude assessment. So whether people have an open mind, people have a certain degree, exhibit certain degree of creativity, ability to connect, because you work with people. We're in an industry where you always work with people. You can't have one person running a bank, and with customers, for example. So it's important that if we look at creativity, if we look at connectivity, if we look at a mindset that's open to explore and to grow, I think those are qualities that we inject in our assessment when we recruit. Yeah.
Great.
Right. Thank you. So our group is a very diversified group. Yeah. So we have real estate, hotel, we have construction, we have restaurant services. Yeah. So, but how are we recruiting? I think one thing really come to my resonate in my what I learned is how to identify candidate with the motivation, with the passion, that actually the hungriness to learn and grow. Because as we keep talking about changes, yeah, the environment kept changing. I think you look at the past 4 years, very recent. In Hong Kong in particular, social unrest, the COVID actually changed a lot of the landscape. So what we actually try to look for is people really with a growth mindset and really hungry to learn, and we put this effort to self-learn. I actually want to share one example. We have an internal auditor. She actually was really passionate in sustainability. She actually volunteered herself to take on this over her day job and self-learn. Then what happened? She is one of our sustainability manager and in our group talent pool. So that's something that really, really good. And also I think the skill set we're looking for, with today's the technology, the speed of development is really only yesterday, a consultant actually in front of our eyes, you turn 5 words into an email for business case for approval and turn it into a video, all within 15 minutes. So this actually, very quickly, I think technology can take over. But I think the transferable skill, for example, the communication skill, the empathy, the team building, the creativity, I think all these are transferable. Regardless of which part of the business we transfer those people to, they will be successful because we can train them on other area.
Thanks.
If I may add, I think it's important that employers also recognize and assess people with shared values, shared ambitions and shared values, because that actually allows an organization to move uniformly in one direction and to progress and pursue the common purpose, the common ambition amongst workers as well as the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. We try to even take this down to the team level. So when we're talking about matching somebody for a job, it's not just obviously the technical aspects of the job. It's not just the company culture either. It's the team. What specific team are they going to be working on, and how are they going to fit into that team, and what are the softer skills that they need for that team? Yeah.
It's really cool to hear what Haley said just now, because we're seeing in the data as well that definitely I think when the employers rank what will be the most important thing, and it's these absolutely soft skills, transferable skills. That's exactly what they're looking for the graduates as well. So it's completely on point.
I would love to hear also, so your recommendation, I'll start with you, Diana, your recommendation from an employer side for job aspirants who are trying to, especially those that are trying to get into something new that they haven't done in school. And I'd ask the same of all, but I think, Bill, also maybe from recommendations for employers as well, I think for you, because I think you have a bit of that angle. So let me start with Diana.
Yeah, I think even for banking, I mean, I've been in the sector for so long. We never thought of actually new roles as in sustainability, what do you do and how can banks actually play a role? We develop our technology and our infrastructure, but now we spend an equal amount of investment and time and efforts on cybersecurity. So the nature of work actually has evolved. Now, it's important, I think, to think of when recruiting colleagues, there are certain areas where you do require technical know-how. Yeah, if you're in finance, if you're in legal and whatnot. That said, very many of the transferable skills actually would enable and empower our people to explore different venues within the organization. I've seen very many of the best bankers, they actually have background from social sciences, from English literature, nothing to do with economics or finance or accounting. So I think it's important to recognize and to look for qualities where people are creative, they are passionate, they have self-motivation. They actually want to learn and to be better. I think that's important because I go back to my earlier point. We are a business of trust. So for people to want to connect with you, to trust you, and then trust you with their wealth and their family assets, we have to have that ability to communicate, that empathy and that sincerity. So integrity is also important, I'd say, yeah.
I think like mindset is super important. So I think yesterday I learned a new thing about AI mindset. Because I think like at the moment, a lot of people worry about, will digital, will technology replace my role? I'm convinced, no. I think it's like what Andrea said, it's technology will replace those who don't know how to use technology to improve what you are doing. I think that's the important part. So then I think like with so much changes, I think the ability to stay agile, adapt, and also like able to actually ahead of the game, to actually equip yourself so that no matter what changes come to you, you're ready. I think that's important.
Definitely a very consistent theme.
Yeah, exactly. I think concur with both the ladies here. Essentially, I think, employers are doing more. Basically, what they're seeing is they're looking at for transferable skills, the programs. I think one of the things that we're working really interesting, I think, with Generation in Hong Kong is that we have a program where we brought, teachers and students to Jobsdb for a day to shadow, our folks. And, to see the joy, in the students as well as the teachers' face, oh, wow, this is how, a designer works. This is how, product development works. It really helped to bridge that gap. And this is something, I think, across, the industries, whether it's a larger corps or maybe, even from an SME's perspective, it's something that can be encouraged and should be encouraged. Yeah.
Great, thanks. I think, are we doing Q&A now? I'm not so good with the time.
Jeremy, if I may actually add one more point, and that is I think a mindset that also aligns to and aspires to continuous learning. I think that is important. Learning is a journey, regardless of how much time and what sort of technical knowledge and expertise you have in certain fields. It's always an ongoing journey. I mean, banking services, a lot of very many years ago, maybe 10, 20 years ago, graduates or people wanted to get into banking because of iBanking. I want to be an iBanker. These days, actually, people come in to say, oh, actually, financial institutions have a role to play in terms of sustainability. How do we help our clients transition, through climate journeys? And that is actually a sense of purpose and a mission. And it's not really technical training. Now, that said, what we have done in Hang Seng is this year, for all our colleagues, regardless of your seniority, regardless of what role you play, we offer training to our colleagues on sustainability. So how the society, how the markets, how the industry actually is evolving and moving in the direction. And for certain areas, of course, we have more in-depth sort of training. And I think that's an example of continuous learning. You can be a 30-year experienced banker, but you're still actually going through that training. Likewise, on data literacy. Very many of our colleagues are very experienced, but not necessarily entirely comfortable with technology or data literacy per se. So we also equip our colleagues, all of them, with at least basic abilities to know what it's all about and how to apply them. And I think, again, that's an example of continuous learning.
No, I love that. So I'm gonna a little bit cheeky because I think we're all young, but we're not that young. So when we grew up, it was very much we learned in school and then we went on the job and that's it. So I want to ask each one of you, what is next on your continuous learning journey? What do you want to learn next, or what have you planned to learn next?
For me, it's definitely the AI side. Yeah, the generative AI. So it's amazing what I have experienced so far. So I want to be able to master it.
Yeah, same. AI, I think it's the trend, it's the thing, a lot of things, it applies to my work as well, and what I want personally, I think that's really important, yeah.
There are many for me, but if I had to choose one, I think sustainability. I mean, it's not so much the technical side, but really it's relevant. And there are imminent challenges in the world already. Even in Hong Kong, we've gone through, very severe weather conditions. We're actually seeing multiple challenges on a sustainability front. And for our next generations, actually, how are we actually being responsible to create an environment and a world for our next generations? So for me, I think, amongst all things, the sustainability, if I had to pick one.
Yeah, I think it has to be AI too. I think this is the first time where I really sat down and said, I have to learn something new. Like, it wasn't curiosity, right? A lot of stuff is, oh, this is interesting, I want to do something different. I have to. I don't have a choice. Like, it's cool and it's fun, but you don't have a choice. Like, you will fall behind if you don't get up on AI. Cool. Sorry. So do we have questions?
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fox, and to our panelists for that discussion.
咁接住落嚟咧，我哋就會有問答嘅環節嘅，亦都歡迎咧在場有興趣嘅觀眾咧，可以嚟到咧我哋發問區嘅位置咧，稍後㗎。
Okay, we do invite anyone who has a question to come up to your left side. There is a mic there. While you guys are contemplating coming out, I do have a question here from the side here that says, could each of our panelists please tell us what you think and define as success, please?
I'll start first.
Sure.
My honest answer, I don't know how you define success. I mean, is it wealth? Is it status? Is it a certain seniority in an organization? I don't know. I tend to think of life as being fulfilled. Fulfillment is important for me and for my colleagues. I wanted people, regardless of what role they're in, to actually feel they have a sense of purpose and they're making a difference. They add value and they are valued. So for me, it's a sense of fulfillment that's important. I've never thought of success as, I don't know how people define it. Maybe too many definitions.
Right, mine is very similar to Diane. But I have to simplify the word. I think one with health, and then enjoy what you're doing, happy with the life that you're leading. I think that's success.
I think when the two ladies, at the pinnacle of their career, says they haven't defined success, I think it's very, very humble of them. From my perspective, I think, it's really about the team. I think, when the organization, feels empowered and engaged and succeed, and I think that's where I feel most value, as a person. Yeah.
And mine, I think there's two. I mean, one is purpose. It is some purpose. For me, it's making sure that, when I wake up in the morning and go to bed at night, especially when you're having a terrible day, that, you feel like you've done something positive for people. But the other big thing, and I really like the walkway through this morning. That was fantastic, because my other big word is balance. It's really, really important to me to find balance. I mean, it's work-life balance, but it's also, in the work that you do, having that balance. So you're taking care of yourself, but you're also taking care of others, and you're having some impact in the world.
正如咧，好似我哋今次嘅主題咁咧，我哋都係自己人生嘅導演，咁所以能夠活出自己咧期望嘅生活方式咧，已經咧係大家為之成功之道啦。咁接住嚟，我哋係咪繼續都會有遠方嘅朋友仔有啲問題咧
That's right. Does anyone have any questions? We see someone up here on the mic. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone. This is Jenny from the Jockey Club Youth Team. So I have a question for you all. I remember Andres mentioned from the study of Hong Kong PISA results, a lot of the young people in Hong Kong actually pursue many professional jobs like doctor, lawyer, or seniors manager, and so on. And there's a phenomenon that we observe in the society. Nowadays, many young people, when they graduate, they really look for more interesting job title. For example, like a community catalyst or an incubator and so on. They will find the traditional job title a bit boring or a bit too simple for them, if you may agree with me. So I think there is another perspective looking at the job title, is how they look at their role. If they have a chance to create a job title for themselves, they will take it more personally, and they will have the expectation to fulfill the role that how they name themselves. So I think from your very, very enriched experience, are there any interesting job titles that you've came across from young people when they come to your company and then ask for that role? Or are there aspirational job titles that you see for the young people in the future that we can actually entrust them with more interesting roles and responsibility? So that's my question. Thank you.
Firstly, I think what you guys are doing here is really cool. Simply because early this morning, somebody to guide me, Fong, if I may just point you out, right? Like she was talking about a story how she made a choice that to go pursue a career that may not necessarily be the traditional path. And I just want to say that really inspired me, simply because I don't know whether at my age, coming out graduate, I would have be brave enough to make that choice or not. So I think that's really cool. I think what are the new things that are coming through in the market? What we're seeing in our organization, for example, people coming in and trying in different things. Definitely, I think more on the data side, more on the AI side. We have a lot of AI folks involved. When people come in, not only that we are looking at people who are at the right skills level, a right qualification, but I think when we hire and we look for things, we're also looking for people with attitude, integrity. I think the Warren Buffett, the thing, right? You need to have, aptitude and attitude, and integrity as well. If you don't have the third one, the first two will kill you. So I think we go with that. I think as an organization, yeah.
I tend to have a more radical view on that. I don't think people should be defined by their titles, and unless there is a specific need, especially in our sector, yeah, where you have to interface with certain regulators and clients and whatnot. I actually think it's not necessary to have a job title, because our colleagues know what their day-to-day job is, what their role is. But at the same time, I definitely, our organization, we encourage colleagues to actually participate in projects where they are collaborating with other units and other functions. And it's through that they can explore, oh, maybe I'm in finance, but over time I find, oh, I really like what our colleagues are doing in community and community support. So I don't think there is any stopping our colleagues to explore and venture into different types of new experiences. So I actually tend to think, in a way, maybe labeling and titles should be removed.
I do think people get a bit too hung up on the title specifically.
Yeah. Right, but I think this is my pinpoint actually, title. Because in our group, we do have 4 or 5 different generations. While some generation think title is not important, but like what you just suggested, younger generation do care. And also how fast they can escalate from the entry title to the... But we struggle as well, because with the diversification of our group, then we can't have one team have this fancy title that no one understands compared to this, and when they communicate to others. So I welcome your suggestion. If you do have any ideas, yes, you have creative ideas, then please send it to me. Then we look at it.
I think I echo your points, Diana. I think it is more about experiences. I mean, I know people do want kind of creative titles, but I think it's about, especially if you're going into a new company, it's about trying to figure out what kind of experiences you might have, right? If you come up with a very creative title, but it's a very narrow role, you're still not going to be very satisfied. But if you're going into a company that you know you're going to be able to have a lot of lateral experiences, work in different project teams, I would hope that's where people are looking a bit more. And for us, with Generation itself, we're very small, very, very small. So we run into this a lot where people say, well, where's my vertical trajectory? And we don't have it, really. It has to be lateral experiences, right? And that's where the enrichment comes from. And that's eventually where the growth will come from.
Okay, thank you very much for your question. Anyone else? Anyone else in the audience? I see someone else coming up. This is great. This is why we're having forums like this.
Hello, thank you so much for your sharing. It's really inspiring. And I just wonder, there are like two groups of, how to say, like colleagues. Like some of them, they are like having certain kind of working experience. When we are talking about like growing mindset, I just wonder how you guys keeping them to keep learning when they're having like, I'm okay with my position, I'm okay with the stability right now. And I just wonder like how you keep engaging them to the learning process when they're having like many years of experience. I guess like most of the organization or companies that we are facing the same issues that, I guess like you have to do more, you have to learn more, but somehow it's quite hard to facilitating them to do it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the question. Especially in a bank, you can imagine if you're stuck in a certain role, it can be quite mundane. It can be quite boring.
But comfortable for some people.
Well, true. So that's why I don't think it's a right or wrong. But I think it's, first of all, it's recognizing the contribution of our colleagues and where they exhibit appetite to try something new. Not necessarily changing their jobs, but to try something new or to be a part of a wider project that they see they are contributing to. So it goes back to my earlier point of purpose. I think it's through that experience they're learning. So for example, we are enhancing our mobile banking app, for example. Every day we do that. It's like if you have an Apple phone, it's an iOS upgrade every other day kind of thing. So it doesn't necessarily have to be our IT colleagues doing that, because it's really from a customer perspective, is this intuitive? Is it easy to use? And we get our colleagues to participate, to generate ideas, and then we act on them. That also is part of a learning journey. Now, over time, when colleagues settle into a role and they know exactly how they're contributing, they would think, we see a lot of our colleagues thinking, but there are certain areas that we want to know more in terms of how the bank is progressing. Why are we doing this? What is the purpose of doing this, and how I, as a piece of the jigsaw, can fit into the overall puzzle, right? So that's where they would raise their hand and say, I wanted some form of training or that e-learning experience, or I actually want to go and do a degree. We would support that. So I think it's not a right or wrong. It's how people and colleagues actually aspire to develop themselves or their career. We will support. I think that is the important thing.
Yeah. If I may, so exactly, I think to Diane's point is now, people can be in different stages of their career. They are ambitious and they're ready to take on more responsibility. Or people could be ambitious, but during that period, maybe, they just experience fatherhood or motherhood. Maybe for the period of a year or so, it's completely normal. So it's important to recognize that. Then what organizations are doing is basically, being able to customize and engage their employees better, such that the right training and learning and development tools are available. And that's coming through, leaps and bounds because of technology, online learning, being able to learn anytime, anywhere, that bite-sized learning, micro-credentials, those kind of things are happening as well.
Yeah, that's exactly what we are doing. We actually encourage our colleagues for learning for life. So yeah, we have created different program for at least bite-size of 15 minutes to actually help them how to actually improve their personal effectiveness, to creating academy for different professional, functional development, and also leadership development. So at different stages of their career, we actually want them not to stop learning, because the growth, the hungriness to continue equip yourself, regardless where they are, what stages of career they are, then the tools are there. Because with today's technology, you can easily go into LinkedIn, go into different business schools that we subscribe. We create that like a newspaper. People can just read it to improve their knowledge.
I think it also matters on the role in the individual, right? So I would ask the question, are you stagnating or are you specializing, right? Because there is a role for some people in some roles to really, really specialize. Sometimes in your, selfishly in a company, sometimes I want someone who just absolutely knows what they do and they enjoy doing it and they just do it better every day. Now, it doesn't mean there's not continuous learning in there, but it's not the kind of thing that we're talking about, having lots of, lateral experiences and growth. Sometimes it's good to be a specialist. So I think it is a little bit horses for courses too, to be fair.
And I think learning doesn't necessarily have to be just technical skills. We also have a lot of support for our colleagues if they're actually interested in aromatherapy or floral arrangement or cooking or exercising and aerobics or yoga. So I think it's through a total experience. You inspire colleagues to want to be adventurous, to want to be exploring different facets of life. Now, again, it's not wrong if they're not interested. That's perfectly fine, and they actually will be supported as well and valued as well. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much for your questions. Thank you, Ms. Caesar, Ms. Leung, Mr. Lee, for your sharing, and of course to Dr. Fox for moderating for us. At this time, we would invite all of you to take a photo, so please stand and come in front of the coffee table.
喺度再一次感謝施女士、李先生、梁女士同埋 Mr. Fox 為我哋帶嚟非常之精彩嘅分享。
All right, can we please look at our floor photographer first, and then we'll look to the back, but first our floor photographer in the front. Okay, and now please look at the back at our camera. There's a video camera at the back of the room. Okay, thank you very much once again to our panelists and to our moderator. Thank you.
Thank you，再一次感謝咁多位演講嘉賓可以先移步會座。
Ladies and gentlemen, we will now break for lunch. The conference will resume promptly at 2:45 p.m. when we will have our second plenary session. Now, for those of you who have pre-registered for a VIP luncheon, that luncheon will take place in room S421. I'll repeat that once again, S Sugar 421. There are staff and ushers on hand to guide you up to that room.
再次感謝咁多位來賓咧出席我哋上午嘅論壇，我哋上午嘅論壇咧已經圓滿完成啦。下晝嘅環節咧將會喺2:45準時開始㗎。如果較早前咧報咗名咧參與 VIP 午宴嘅來賓咧，可以跟隨住我哋工作人員嘅指引，去到 S421 嗰度用膳㗎。
Now, also, being in the hall today, you heard there was some going on surround the room. Don't forget to visit our youth performance and youth showcase where you can witness firsthand how our young people take ownership of their lives. There are lots of booths around. They're doing many different things. Please also scan the QR code at each of the booths to participate in the online mini game. To participate in that game, and you will have a chance to win some great prizes, and also you will simultaneously be casting a vote for that movie booth as a favorite with an inspiring life story that has somehow touched your heart. Now, we were here last night rehearsing, and I know some of these young people were here till midnight setting up their booths and rehearsing, so please go and show your support for them.
冇錯啊！我哋喺午休嘅時間咧，我哋場內繼續咧都會有唔同嘅展覽啦，同埋會有年輕人嘅舞台表演㗎，所以大家咧千祈唔好錯過。有時間嘅話咧，可以喺我哋現場咧行一圈，大家絕對會感受到咧我哋班年青人嘅熱誠㗎。咁另外啦，喺攤位上邊咧都會有我哋嘅 QR code 啦，我哋掃描呢個二維碼咧就可以參與咧現場攤位嘅線上問答遊戲，有機會贏取精美嘅禮品㗎。咁而且咧，大家仲可以投票啦，去投選俾你最喜愛嘅電影攤位同埋最觸動你心嘅生涯故事㗎。咁大家千祈唔好錯過啦！我哋午餐後再同大家見面啦。
Thank you again for joining us this morning. We'll see you after lunch. Thank you.